Welcome back to Unraveling the Brain podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Mattson. Today's episode, Dr. Ashley is actually chatting with a parent and talking about the importance of primitive reflexes for overall foundational development, how they play into learning issues and behavioral dysregulations and eye tracking skills and things like that with one of the parents that brought their kids here. So in helping that parent, understand that how important that foundation of primitive reflexes really is. And they go into some other topics as well. So enjoy this episode. I hope you guys learn a ton, and let's jump into the show.
I guess we'll kind of just roll right into it. That's, I guess, a great conversation, right? Great intro. But yeah, you guys were here for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, just kind of sharing a little bit about Owen's background and kind of your experience here in the office, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, Owen is 7 years old, and we have gone down the rabbit hole of different things because he was, we didn't know this at the time, but he was a long birth and just had a lot of struggle kind of those first 8 months of life. And we were living overseas because we were a military family, and so a lot of the opportunities for us were pretty slim, even though we were doing things on that economy as well. And we kind of dove into PT work because we saw W-sitting, or we saw flat-footedness. And so, let's go that route. And then we saw speech influences, which obviously we were like, well, we've got a 50-50 here of the amount of influence of the other language that he was being accustomed to. So we thought not a lot into it. And then as we moved back to the United States, we saw a lot of other things that were happening. And just moments, even from when he was kind of a year, where it wasn't quite a seizure, but there was just like these impulses where it was like, is his blood sugar just going down? And it's just, what was it that was really going on within his body? So we kept looking into different things and doing different tests, but not trying to overwhelm ourselves, but as well as for him to keep that trust going. But a lot of our pediatrician, even different OTs that we were seeing, everything was just kind of plateauing, or it was just normalized. He's a normal kid. He's going through normal stuff. But we knew at our core there was something off
It needs
with
to be
Owen.
addressed.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I will just say, starting with Owen, I mean, it's been so beautiful to watch him grow and develop these last 2 weeks. And he's just made such big strides. And I guess, what was the biggest piece when you kind of came in with your initial exam, and were there kind of answers that you hadn't received before in the past, or were there like little pieces of like, wow, no one's ever I guess educated me on this piece, or new things that you kind of like learned from the office that was kind of unique?
Yeah. So as I was sharing this with you earlier too, we were both on with my husband's background and his TBI and PTS injuries, that he had done a lot of work on his own brain and his health, mental health and well-being. And we were kind of in the same boat, and we ran across Josh Manson's work and what he was doing on social media. And so we were semi-introduced to it because we had seen parts of Owen that we said, yes, that's him. So we felt finally like we had seen other kids and watching what was going on. I mean, the videos, I just teared up every time of just the influence and the miracles that you all were doing. And we thought there would be nothing but positive for Owen for here. And then, but actually being here, I know my husband was 100% in. There was still a part of me, because we're homeschooling, because I'm 24/7 with my kiddo. I mean, I was 80% in. I'm like, I would actually see Owen in real time of what it is that's going on. And so as you were testing him and going through, I could see, yes, okay, here's his ATNR, here's his STNR, like where it actually is, and his hands and his Babinski with his feet. I never really had made the correlation of his struggle with his hands, with writing, because I knew that there were frustrations there. I knew he would sit there and but he wasn't able to verbally express it too, of just what was going on, and internalizing that. And I was frustrated as a parent because I wanted to help him too.
Yeah, even with your teaching background, right? You're like,
yeah, just stuck in that.
Mm-hmm.
So to have that actually addressed and see, okay, it's Laurel, correct? For the
Palmer.
hands, Palmer.
Mm-hmm. Grasp reflex.
And to actually see that, or for him to understand the sweatiness is coming from his body being,
tone.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
and have his parasympathetic just being off,
yep,
to be able to balance that again. So it was just all of those things, a culmination, and being able to define it, to actually have it lined up.
Mm-hmm. And I know we addressed a big piece of his eyes too, and that being incorporated with, hey, school is frustrating. His eyes aren't working appropriately. They're not being utilized efficiently together. That's taxing on the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, school is going to be frustrating for a kid who isn't utilizing both of his eyes effectively. Of course, writing is going to be difficult because, well, he has a palmar reflex in his right hand and he's right-handed.
Right.
So all those things like just add on and kind of compound to making school just challenging, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So what have you kind of seen the last week or so? I know Owen's only been here for 2 weeks, but there are some things that you kind of gleaned on of wow, he's making big strides in this or that.
Yeah. And we talked about too that we had definitely some moments that were really emotional for him, and compounded.
Yeah.
And we talked about kind of this chafing that's going on within his brain and within his body.
Yep.
So
that neural pruning.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there were some very hard moments, but there were just little beautiful indications. And I'm really optimistic of what changes we'll see over in the next few weeks and months to come for him. Yeah. So
he's a really special kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were blessed to have him in the office. I know everyone here that was able to work with Owen, we're going to miss him after you guys leave.
Yeah.
He's a sweet kid.
And that means a lot because there's been therapists that we've gone to that we've felt like he's just been pushed aside. And to have that amount of time, whether he's just having a meltdown or he's frustrated and he doesn't know how to put it, to be able to just have an elongated amount of time where you're not set by the clock and then I need to go see my next patient, right? Mm-hmm. That you're able to just love on these kids and actually serve their needs instead of just,
part of the job.
Yeah. That's what's incredible to hear, for that you get to actually build that relationship, even though it's just these core amount of intensive times. So that's what's meant a lot to us is that you're actually building that need in that relationship. I know he's going to miss you all. And it was so sweet to hear that.
I know. I've hugged him every day this week just to make sure that I got one more hug in before you guys leave. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I've loved in the practice of, we used to mainly only see 30-minute time slots with patients. And, the amount of information that you get when you spend with 2 hours with a kid, you really pick up on, okay, what truly is the root of their struggles? What truly is going on? Okay, are there emotional things that we need to address too? Okay, are there physical, there's so many things that go into a kid and how to get them to function as best as they possibly can. And each kid's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
What works for one might not work for another.
Right.
But if you don't have that time with that kid, you'll never know what's truly going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a tiny snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just say, for anyone who is a physical therapist, who is a chiropractor, who is I would just press on people to spend more time with these kids, right?
Yeah.
That's truly where you really get to know someone and know what's going on, is the more that you spend time with them and see what's going on in their body, the more you can kind of help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This video is sponsored by Unraveling the Brain, which is actually my course to train doctors to help these kids in the way that we do. So if you guys know anyone and know any doctors that are in your area that are maybe interested in working with kids, go ahead and send them a link to limitlessfoundation.co so that way I can help train them so you guys have a provider close to you guys. Let's jump to the show.
Any other big pieces that you kind of want to share for parents who might be watching this, or just kind of what I guess really pulled you into the office? And
I think it's for me, it's, and my husband, as I've been corresponding with him, it's this awareness of, regardless of where the kid is, whether it's a physical handicap, mental handicap, learning disability, behavioral, not dysfunction, but just where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. It's more of kind of, it's across the board, is this real need to focus on primitive reflexes. And I think about too, how much, even looking back for me, that awareness does need to be pushed 100% across, is just how different it would be for my son's kindergarten experience, right? And if those things were addressed, instead of, let's go get him tested, of where he could be mentally, emotionally, it's defined better.
It is important for parents to be able to realize, okay, there's a place for my kid when they kind of sit in the middle, right? Where you don't have a diagnosis, or you might not even want a diagnosis, but I know that my kid can function better, or I know my kid has more potential if we could work on this or that. Yeah. And I definitely say, like, Owen definitely fits that category of,
right.
I mean, if you look at him and he's playing across the street, you're like, that kid's fine. But there are definitely things that we addressed this week that are going to help Owen's life in the long run, for
emotionally and within his learning experience, all the above. Yeah. So it's just that awareness that could be so crucial for so many parents of just the toxic world that we live in, and this barrage of, you need to learn this by kindergarten and this by first grade, and then by the time they're in third and fourth grade, they're just lapsed into this, and the things that could weigh upon them emotionally, right? Of them closing down as a young kiddo. So we wanted to prevent that for our son and be able to see that. And while we were here too, we had our second son seen as well. Yeah. And we did not.
That was unexpected, right?
We were able to slip in, and we were just lucky enough to get our youngest son seen.
Yeah.
And I knew that there were sensory delays for sure for Levi. And we've done some testing for him in terms of speech delays as well. And we knew those, but I had no clue. I was floored how much his primitive reflexes were there.
Yeah.
And it really did help me a lot to just see and be aware of that. But like I said, it whittled it down instead of just trying to feel like, okay, there's this part and this part and this part that's going on with our sons. But just, what is the foundation? It's a bottom up situation. And once that primitive reflex is done, then we can move on to other parts. And I know that you defined that as well. It was like, we don't need to be hitting all the visual coordination issues that Owen has. We need to first be able to do the primitive reflexes and then work through the vestibular, and then you can do the ocular to be able to get to that higher level of thinking. Absolutely. So it was like I said, just, it was whittled down, it was clarified, and it creates that foundation for us as parents. So
yeah, I mean, you nailed that perfectly.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about in the office of the educational piece of kids going through school. And you're right, they're not ready to read effectively because they have all these other things going on that need to be addressed. And then they get labeled with behavioral outbursts and all this stuff because they are so frustrated because they're not ready. They're not ready to tackle that aspect of school yet because they have all these underlying primitive reflexes, core balance, vestibular issues, eye tracking issues. So yeah, they're going to be frustrated. Yeah. So I just want to echo that of the educational piece that, especially you as a teacher, you have a teaching background and like that knowledge of knowing when kids are truly ready for school. And that's a big piece. And getting that addressed earlier on in life, is going to just be so much better for the kid in general. Yeah.
What if pediatricians did that prior to kindergarten, right? Or if school entrance for a school district, they checked on primitive reflexes. A lot of, pre-K kind of, can you jump on one leg, right? Can you balance on that? Well, let's do primitive reflexes and have that actually checked before they're going into schooling.
Yeah, that would be
so core for them.
So. Well, Allison, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know this is just going to be so beneficial for a lot of families that are kind of in your shoes right now of like not really having a clear path of what their child needs. So I just want to thank you for sharing kind of Owen's story. And it's been a huge blessing to have you guys in the office. And we're so thankful that you're here.
Thank you. So that's why I'm doing this, is the stories that you guys have been able to share. It's like, it's, as I've been talking to Lucia too, it's like, it's a passion of ours. It's like, who else can I share this with? So there was another military family who they've reached out to me, and their two kiddos, they're twins. She adopted them, and they're the same age as Owen. And, you know, the mom was drug induced, right? And so there's a lot of things that they're doing. And she's like, what do I need to know? Where can I sign up? Right? So it's just, there's that need that's out there. So, and I just don't want to see other parents just flailing of trying to figure out this part or that part of how to do things.
What's going to stick, right? I'll throw PT, I'll throw this. And I'm not saying that those things don't have a purpose, because they absolutely do. Right. But having an overarching like plan for this child, like what do we need to address first? And then what things are more important later down the line, right? It's just figuring out that that flow of, okay, you can't read first if you don't know the alphabet. There are things that need to fall into place at a specific order in order to have the maximum effect. Yeah.
Hey, what things could I, as my husband and I know we attune a lot to, like Dr. Amen, and gosh, I'm reading through Caroline Leaf, because I do a lot of MRES myself, emotional resolution. What else could I be doing in terms of learning as I'm trying to understand Owen's brain as much as we're trying to learn our own behavioral health too?
I'll send you a lot of resources.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be in contact with you via email, and we can kind of go back and forth. Because I think that's a crucial part of just the longevity and just constantly being, honestly, like, you're the biggest provider in Owen's life. You're his mom. Like, you're with him day in, day out. The more you know, the better you can serve him. And so I'll send you a bunch of resources that
one
are
of the things
really applicable for you.
The hardest for me is like, yes, I kind of want to watch Owen, but I'm like, I just want to sit and talk to you or talk to Lauren or Dr. Lauren. It's like, holy cow, you guys have so much of a wealth of information, but you put it in a, not just a tactile way, in a really simplified form, because you're living it. You're seeing it in such a range with different types of kids that I'm like, I want to glean some of that information myself. So, because who knows?
Well, we're hiring.
But God could use that as much as like it's my art background and the things that Sean and I are doing in our own lives. It's like, who knows what could be utilized. So that's what I always told kids in terms of when they were doing art in my classroom. Like, who knows? You just might be creative with your cooking style or whatever. You never know how that creative part, once you're opening up that part of your brain, what that will do later on in your life. So
I mean, that's the reason that we do it, is we serve a higher God, right? And you just want to go in and help each kid be as best as they possibly can to utilize their gifts. And I mean, I'm not afraid to share faith in this office and my love for the Lord, and I just pray that every day I go in and serve these kids, and I just glorify Him through doing it. And that's what makes it special.
And that was a joy for us too. To see that was a shared thing. I mean, it was a unique thing, but it's really cool.
Okay. No, don't ever apologize. That was awesome.